If you go to Wikipedia right now and look at the list of the best-selling fiction authors of all time, you'll see Shakespeare at number 1 and Eiichiro Oda at number 10, just 2 spots shy of J.K. Rowling, and who is at number 8. Standing at over 500 million copies in circulation, his story, One Piece, is both the best-selling manga in history and the best-selling comic series printed in volume. He actually holds a Guinness World Record for the most copies published for the same comic book series by a single author. But while we all love and talk about One Piece, and no doubt everyone knows the name Eiichiro Oda, how many of us actually know about this man and the story of his life? How much do we know about Eiichiro Oda? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I can think of no other person who was dominating the animation medium, the comic books medium, and the live action medium at the same exact time. No one but Eiichiro Oda. Yes, you often see people joke about the length of One Piece, but let's not forget that it's the culmination of one man's life's work. Oda started One Piece in 1997 and it's still going strong. That's over 2.5 decades of publishing new chapters consistently. Now all that's left for him is to finish One Piece, and just like that, he will be remembered as one of the greatest of all time. It all started in 1975 when a baby was born in Japan's Kumamoto prefecture. Like most parents from that time, Oda's parents must have thought he'd become a doctor or an engineer, but fast forward to a few years later and our boy is already thinking about becoming a mangaka. In the One Piece Blue Grand Data file, it is stated that Oda was 4 years old when he first thought of becoming a mangaka. Naturally, manga was popular medium back then, but nowhere as lucrative as it is now. However, Oda was a simple kid. He knew he didn't want to work at a normal job like everyone else, which is pretty understandable. But what I find interesting is how he didn't dream of something like an astronaut or a football player or something to that extent. Nah, he decided to go for it all, to become a mangaka. Still, how does a 4-year-old just come to the conclusion that being a mangaka is a way out of the normal life? As it turns out, Oda's father had an oil painting hobby and he used to think that they made money from it without doing any real work. In hindsight, it was definitely the right decision because he is now worth at least $230 million. So what kind of manga series was he reading back then? You may say Dragon Ball, but not quite, because Dragon Ball didn't come out until 1984. Well, Oda must have read plenty of the popular titles from that time, but the earliest he can recall is The Monster Kid. It was a comedic story of the same monster kid and his friends, such as Dracula, Wolfman, and Franken. They travel from the monster land to the human realm, fight assassins along the way. It's a popular series that began serialization in the 60s. There's also a major animated series from the 70s called Vicky the Viking. Oda loved it, and this series is actually what sowed the seeds for Oda's eventual obsession with pirates. Time continues to pass and Oda is no longer a kid anymore. He is now in 5th grade. Back then, the Weekly Shonen Jump magazine was serializing Captain Tsubasa, which is like the most classic football manga ever. And as you can expect, it inspired him to join his school's football club. Dragon Ball started serializing around this time as well. Heck, when Oda read its 2nd chapter, he was completely hooked. Little did he know, he will go on to be heavily influenced by Toriyama Sensei's art style and humor. In 7th grade, or basically in his 2nd year of middle school, Oda finally started drawing manga for real. He knew he wanted to draw a pirate-related story, and with time, he became more and more absorbed into the art of drawing manga. He also quit football after entering high school. That's pretty much what happens in the 80s. Oda evolves from a literal kid to a teenage high school student, and believe it or not, he managed to debut during high school. It happens during the senior year. He is 17 years old. If you watched or read Bakuman, you may be familiar with the Tezuka Awards, named after the godfather of manga, Osamu Tezuka. The Tezuka Awards are awarded for young, upcoming artists. For the sake of context, this is the year 1992 we're talking about. It's when Eiichiro Oda graduates from high school. I'm pretty sure he was just as anxious as any other high school student, especially because he didn't want to work a normal job. Still, Oda spends 4 months crafting a work for Tezuka Awards. He had seen the classic American action film Young Guns, and so he eventually ended up creating a Western-style gag manga called Wanted. Before even submitting it, he was already proud of his work, but he was still a high school student, so he was worried what his parents would think if they found out he would actually make this manga. So he decided to submit the work under a pseudonym instead of using his real name. He submitted it as Suki Himizu Kokondo. Well, it looks like fate was on Oda's side because his manga ended up winning 2nd place. This earned him a whopping 500,000 yen cash prize and plenty of industry recognition. That was it. Oda tried it and it worked. Now there was no going back. In the first month of 1993, Wanted was published in a magazine called Mezas Mangaka. This time, he went with his real name and he also did an interview. Yup, Oda was already publishing stuff and doing interviews even as a 17-year-old. This interview was published in Kumamoto Nichi Shimbun on January 27th, 1993. Oda finally graduates high school in the spring of 1993. He ends up going to a private university in his prefecture. We're talking about Kyushu Tokai University. He enrolls in their architecture program, but of course, he also keeps submitting more and more stuff to Suisha. His next work is called God's Gift for the Future, but Oda is actually kind of disappointed when it ends up in the monthly magazine and not the weekly Shonen Jump he is so fond of. The thing is, he didn't know that the Tezuka Awards are a gateway to the monthly serialization and not the weekly Shonen Jump serialization. So, Oda does what he always does. He creates another manga called Ikiyako, and this time he submits it for the Hot Step Awards. These awards are basically the weekly Shonen Jump Newcomer Award, and he does it again. Oda wins first place. Now, on one hand, Oda was blooming, but on the other hand, he had to face the dreaded freshman exams. So he does what any sane man would do in a situation. He completely drops out of college because he knows he can get much higher in the manga industry. It's early 1994. Oda goes to Tokyo and starts his mangaka career under the eyes of editor Taro Kushima. If you follow Sandman on Twitter, you may have heard about the one piece of advice Oda's editor once gave him. It was kind of annoying, or at least, that's how Oda puts it. But the person who told him that his female characters are not cute was Karo Kushima. Oda was left stun-locked. The criticism shook him so hard that he couldn't sleep. He just kept drawing female characters again and again and again in an effort to make them look cute. Keep in mind that Oda was still a rookie in the grand scheme of things. The realization that his female characters sucked was like a warning sign. Also, like most manga creators, Oda began working as an assistant for other, already successful creators. The first creator he assisted was Shinobu Kaitani. He was only there for a few chapters. He helped Kaitani sensei finish his manga Midoriyama Police Gang. By the way, Kaitani went on to create two brilliant manga series, namely One Outs and Liar Game. Oda was only with him for a month, but he was able to learn a lot from Kaitani sensei, mostly because he worked on Sori's last few chapters. Next, he started assisting Masaya Tokuhiro. Oda was with him for two manga series. First, he helped with Jungle King Tar-chan, and then with Kappa Man. And although Tokuhiro sensei was rather reserved in letting his assistants handle things, Oda was able to grow immensely during this period. It lasted 18 months. Of course, during this time, he was also trying to create his own manga. That's when Kushima told him that his female characters sucked, among other things. He took all of her criticism seriously and created his fourth manga yet. It was published in 1994 as Shonen Jump Autumn Special, back when Oda had just recently joined Tokuhiro sensei. And want to know the name of this manga? It's Monsters. Yes, the one where Ryoma was introduced. Though when Oda read his own work after it was published, he realized that he had a long way to go. When Oda was finished with Tokuhiro sensei's Copymon, he became Nobuhiro Watsuki's assistant. We're talking about one of the frontrunners in shonen manga world, the man who created Kenshin. Watsuki sensei allowed his assistants to participate in his work, and you know what? It was actually Oda who came up with the cross-dressing swordsman, Hanjo Kamatari. Watsuki sensei has personally credited Oda for Kamatari's creation. Though the time spent at Watsuki sensei's studio was fun and all, Oda was making friends, and his skills were improving. But for what it's worth, all of his storyboards kept getting rejected. It just wasn't working. Since his first work, Wanted, was published, Oda had created 3 more, but in 1996, he faced a wall. And as fate would have it, this is also what propels him to come back to his roots. He finally decides to bring the life to pirate serial idea he has been thinking about all this time. Yup, that's right guys. Romance Dawn was published in 1996 as Oda's 5th manga. Indeed guys, everything starts coming together for Oda. Romance Dawn receives great news from readers. Around this time, Oda also falls in the hands of a new editor named Takanori Asada. Asada wanted to fill the gap in Weekly Shonen Jump with his pirate series, and of course, he knew that Romance Dawn is going places. But the old fossil fuels running the magazine were rather skeptical. They didn't think it would work, but Asada was a real one. He argued with them on Oda's behalf. But what was the reason behind their their disapproval. Putting it simply, they wanted something more like Dragon Ball, but Oda wanted something more adventure-driven. He didn't back down, and finally, the old folks gave in and let him serialize after several months of endless back and forth. Imagine if Oda and Asada hadn't shown their backbone. Imagine if they didn't have as much faith in One Piece. It's incredible how close we were to a world without One Piece. But fortunately, that world will never happen. In May of 1997, the revised version of Romance Dawn was approved for serialization. It was named after the legendary treasure of One Piece, about which the story is all about. Oda parted ways with Watsuki Sensei's and started his first ever serialization. Though you know what? At the time, no one could have conceived that One Piece would become as big as it is today. No one, not even Oda himself. He thought it would last like 5 years or so, but it has been over 25 years. One Piece is the biggest manga in the world. The anime series is among the most popular, and the live action is also going places. You see, this man, Eiichiro Oda, has been stacking W's for decades, but it's never smooth sailing though, not in the Weekly Shonen Jump. Every new series is given 10 installments to get a sense of whether readers are actually reading it or not. It's not uncommon for stories to get canceled if they aren't doing well. However, when One Piece premiered in July 1997, it had an even better response than Romance Dawn. Just 1 year later, Toei Animation decided to pick up One Piece, and in 1999, the One Piece anime officially pulled up to your screens. Oda was definitely winning at life. In 2000, there was a One Piece game, and in late 2001, Oda met his wife at Jump Fiesta. He was 26 years old at the time, and she was cosplaying as Nami. They got into a relationship and eventually married each other in 2004. In 2006, Oda's first daughter was born, and another one was born in 2009. But One Piece is still his oldest child. Between 2006 and 2009, a lot had happened. Oda fell ill in April 2006. This was during the post-Enies Lobby arc. There was 1 week break between chapter 435 and 436. Naturally, fans were worried about him, so that's when he decided to create Grand Times. Basically, a One Piece newspaper that reminds fans of what's going on in the story and also acts as an easy introduction for new readers. In 2007, at Jump Fiesta 2008, the voice actor of Shanks was absent, but the Straw Hat Theater was acting out the red hair of Class 3C, a play if you will. So what does Oda do? He puts on a pink wig, goes up to the stage with a chalk in his hand, and introduces himself as Shanks. He later said that he only did it because One Piece was nearing its 10th anniversary. Speaking of the number 10, he also helped with the writing process of the 10th One Piece film, aka Strong World. He did it in the honor of the 10th anniversary as well. Also in 2007, Oda and Toriyama did a crossover one-shot called Cross Epoch. There are characters from both One Piece and Dragon Ball just chilling. And in 2011, Oda did a crossover with the creator of Toriko. Another thing, you guys may have heard about the Tohoku earthquake. It was a tragic event that happened in 2011. Oda and many other manga artists drew messages to the victims. Oda has always shown support to earthquake-stricken areas. In 2018, he gifted $8 million to his prefecture. There were 2 donations. $5 million were given under Luffy's name, and the rest of the $3 million were given as a separate donation. If you're interested, you should also search up the One Piece Kumamoto Revival Project. Overall, Oda has always had lively relationships with his friends. From the assistants he worked with at Watsuki Sensei's studio to Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, Oda was always a good friend. In 2014, right before Naruto's last chapter, One Piece chapter 766 was released, and in the cover, Nami is wearing a dress with the Naruto symbol on it. And guess what? Kishimoto Sensei replied by drawing the Straw Hat Jolly Roger at the Hokage Monument in the final chapter. The fan bases may always be at each other's throats, but look at how wholesome the creators themselves are. And let's not forget about Oda's health situation. There was a time when his assistant stated that he only sleeps around 3 hours a day in a typical work week. Guys, it's no secret that Oda has been going hard for decades, but the burnout builds up. In 2013, he was hospitalized for a potonsillar abscess. Next year, he underwent surgery to cure it. And speaking of surgeries, Oda recently had an eye surgery this summer. I'm glad he has been taking more breaks, but considering how he is also actively involved in the live action, I'm not so sure if he's catching a break, even on a break. Well, the man is built different, that's for sure. Previously, he had plans to create a robot manga after One Piece, but considering the Egghead arc in One Piece and how he is planning on incorporating all of his ideas into One Piece, it's pretty clear that he retires after One Piece ends. Until then though, there's still some story left to be told, but it won't be long now. The One Piece manga is in the endgame. Just a few more years and Oda will be able to complete his legacy. What a moment that would be. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts about Eiichiro Oda in the comment section down below. Let's talk about him some more. A sincere like and subscribe can go a long way for your karma. Just saying. Farewell then guys. With that said, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.